To most people, the world's two polar regions are a strange new world, distant and unfamiliar. But this world, dominated by ice and snow, is inextricably linked to our survival as a species. Scientists have been telling us for decades that the North and South poles regulate the Earth's temperature, affecting climate change around the world. But now, these frozen kingdoms are on the brink of collapse. In just 60 short years, the polar regions have warmed at 7 to 10 times the global average. And the powerful force driving this massive change in nature is us. Global warming affects much more than the polar regions. It affects all life on our planet. It's as if these millions of years old glaciers are issuing a warning. The urgent cry of nature. At the other end of the Earth lies the frozen land of Antarctica, the world's coldest and most remote continent. In winter, sea ice covers an area as large as the Antarctic mainland. But when spring arrives, the sea ice slowly begins to crack and melt. The long, narrow Antarctic Peninsula is Antarctica's most northerly region. The coastline along the 1,300-kilometer-long peninsula is the first area to be free of ice and snow. Life returns once again. The Papua or Gentoo penguin is the world's third largest penguin, behind the emperor and king penguins. Gentoos are the best swimmers in the penguin family, able to reach speeds of up to 36 kilometers per hour and swim 3 times as fast as other penguins, even faster than a 10,000-ton ship. They spend most of the year in the cold, fast-flowing waters of the Southern Ocean, hunting for their favorite food, Antarctic krill. As you can see, they are very agile because Gentoo penguins are superb swimmers. When spring arrives, it's time for them to return home. The Gentoo army braves the wind and snow to return to their nesting ground. But it seems the falling snow is making the path slippery. Sometimes there are traffic jams and they start to quarrel. We follow the penguins up onto the Antarctic peninsula. It's summertime in the Antarctic, but the temperature now is probably below 15 degrees Celsius. We've reached the Gentoo penguin colony. Those little black dots you can see behind me are Gentoo penguins. While in the water, they glide with grace and speed. Once ashore, they can't get around quite so quickly. So the penguins trample a path in the snow with their little feet. A penguin highway.
That is the highway that they used to go to the ocean. Make these highways in the way that they try to go for the nesting, and they are always looking for high spots because are the first to release the snows.
Gentoo penguins build their nests on higher ground, like hilltops, because those are the places that catch the most direct sunlight, so the snow melts faster. Once the snow has cleared, they can then build their nests. They're very smart, tramping a penguin highway in the snow with their little feet. It's much easier to move along these ready-made tracks. Springtime is the season for love.
Now is the mating time.
Yes, now is the mating. Now they are trying to find the couple, the partner. So it's a lot of sexual display going on, like a lot of voices, a lot of like flirting, and yeah, trying to get the attention of the partner.
They sing loudly, nod their heads, and bow to get their partner's attention. Sometimes they gently pat their partner with their wings. These two young penguins have become a pair. Once they pair up, they stay together for life. Penguin pairings are among the most devoted in the animal kingdom. As the snow falls in this harsh Arctic climate, a romantic moment unfolds. but a sudden snowstorm dampens the mood. The weather is at its most unstable during the Antarctic summer. So most penguins rush to mate before the sun disappears for the winter. But we soon discover that something isn't quite right. There is nowhere to build their nests and hatch their eggs here.
Last season was very tricky for them, very challenging. Was a lot of snow in the area, and for them it's quite difficult when they have a lot of snow. They don't have free area to lay the eggs. It's part of the global warming because every year we have more humidity in the atmosphere. Here during the summer precipitation it's snowing. So the amount of snow that they have, it's going more and more, like bigger layers. And the summer is not enough time to make all the snow smelt. So they don't have any area free of smelt to build the nest and lay the eggs. So last season they were laying the eggs on the snow. Unfortunately, only 1 or 2 couples succeed with the chicks. The other ones lost the eggs and the chicks.
The majority of the Antarctic is covered by snow and ice, about 98% of the area. Only 2% is exposed rock, which Gentoo penguins need to build their nests and hatch their eggs. But now, as you can see, it's covered in snow, so scientists are very concerned about how many chicks will survive this time. As many as 6,500 penguin pairs nest here, but almost none of their offspring have survived. Is global warming starting to affect the coldest continent on Earth? This enormous flat iceberg that you can see in front of us is 30 kilometers in length. It's now over 40 minutes since we started out in the boat, but we still haven't reached the end, so you can imagine just how huge that is.
The iceberg behind us has come from the Weddell Sea, on an ice sheet moving out over the sea to form an ice shelf, and it breaks off to form a tabular iceberg. A76A, which was larger than the state of Rhode Island. So this has been happening for millennia. It's nothing new. It's just the frequency of the ice breaking off has increased with the change in climate.
The giant A76A iceberg is currently the largest iceberg on Earth. With an area of almost 4,000 square kilometers, or roughly 14 times the size of Taipei. Since breaking off the ice shelf, it has broken into 3 pieces and been carried by the ocean current into the Drake Passage. We only managed a glimpse of the corner while sailing by this gigantic iceberg. The true size is almost unimaginable. But the strong ocean current has ripped at the iceberg, scouring giant caves and arches out of its margins. And the fresh water from this melting ice is being released into the ocean. The Southern Ocean is isolated from the rest of the world. Its remoteness, desolation, strong winds, and huge swells seem to hide its fragility. And at the other end of the globe, in the Arctic glaciers that have existed for tens of millions of years, are breaking up.
This is the 14th of July glacier of Svalbard. It's a gorgeous glacier, and on a day like today, it's quite warm. We have seen a lot of the calvings. You saw the ice coming down.
Yeah. The July heat wave continues unabated. In the Svalbard archipelago, I witnessed a number of glaciers collapsing with my own eyes. But these seem to be just the beginning.
The average of glaciers on Svalbard, they retrieve between 70 and 100 meters per year. Every summer
Every summer?
it disappears. That's the average. There's some glaciers on Svalbard, it's over 200 meters, but there's also glaciers on the northeast corner where it's much less.
Monaco-Breen Glacier is 7 kilometers wide and 60 meters high, a huge and well-known polar glacier. Monaco-Breen Glacier was named in honor of the 19th century explorer Prince Albert I of Monaco. The iceberg's exquisite reflection in the water took my breath away. At the front of the glacier, there's no apparent sign of movement. But the sound of cracking is a warning that something bigger is about to happen. Huge, tens of meter high chunk of ice breaks off the glacier before our very eyes. With a thunderous noise, ice that was once underwater rolls up to the water's surface, creating a huge tsunami-like wave. Millions of tons of ice collapse into the ocean within the space of a few minutes. In the sunshine, the huge chunk of ice is quickly reduced to fragments. Finally, it disappears without a trace. In this moment of gentle beauty, only the icy tears of the glacier remain.
So Lilleøkbreen is 11 kilometers retreating glaciers in Svalbard. In the last 100 years, it lost 40% of its volume. So 40% less than it was 100 years ago. That is global warming that is creating this massive loss. So I really hope it's not as dramatic as it's been, but I do think it will be, unfortunately. We're seeing now the last couple of years, it's a very rapid decrease in the glaciers and an increase in the temperature. So it's very evident here. Glacier is stopped, you see the front, it's plugged. And when that happens, it just starts flowing out, free falling out, and then it's gone.
The dozens of tracks left behind by the retreating glacier are like scars on a snow-white face, unbearable to look at. The Arctic and Antarctic may lie at opposite ends of the Earth, yet we've experienced similar scenes. Are we awakening these glacial giants, dormant for millions of years?
We're seeing melting of ice shelves that is faster than some of the scientists thought was even possible. And we're seeing
Renowned marine physicist Dr. Natalie Robinson is an Antarctic research scientist. She has visited the Antarctic every summer for the last 20 years, surveying glacial collapse and changes in sea ice and ocean currents. The polar ice caps have always dumped ice into the ocean. But the Antarctic ice shelf is breaking up at 6 times the speed it was in the 1990s. Not only this, what's shocked her even more is the sharp reduction in sea ice, which expands and contracts with the seasons.
They first went up in 1979, and over the first 40 years, Antarctic sea ice was just covering a little bit more and a little bit more on average. But then we come to the last 5 years and we see this dramatic drop-off. We have been expecting Antarctic sea ice to start reducing. And so what has been surprising is that it wasn't falling earlier. But to see such a dramatic drop like that in the space of 1 year to the next is really quite alarming. About 20% was missing, 10 times the area of New Zealand, 1.75 million square kilometres less.
In September 2023, the extent of Antarctic sea ice hit a historic new low. Not only had it fallen by 20% from the previous year, there was 2.6 million square kilometers less ice compared to the average between 1981 and 2010, equivalent to an area 72 times the size of Taiwan. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, the sea ice had also melted to its lowest ever extent, 40% less than it had been 80 years earlier. The area that has disappeared would cover the whole of the United States.
It's forming on the surface of the ocean. It's like there's a mirror there, so the sunlight comes in and then reflects off out into space, and it doesn't end up with an opportunity to warm the ocean. But if we start melting the sea ice like we have in this last year, then you're opening up more of the ocean to be absorbing that energy from the sun. We've seen this happen in the Arctic already. So when you start to lose sea ice, the ocean warms up and then you form less sea ice and then the ocean warms up even more. And so this is also what's happening in Antarctica now as well.
We've arrived at a location above 80 degrees north in the Arctic Ocean. What you can see now is the Arctic sea ice. Sea ice acts like the Earth's mirror. During the summer, it reflects heat from the sun, cooling the Earth. But if it warms, the sea ice melts, and the deep Arctic Ocean instead absorbs the heat. This is also why Arctic warming is usually 3 to 4 times the global average. But in the past few decades, this area of ocean has already warmed by 1.25 degrees Celsius, as much as 7 times the global average.
Polar regions are particularly impacted by climate change, so we have something which is called polar amplification.
Dr. Erik Behrens, Chief Climate Change Scientist at NIWA, specializes in Earth systems modeling and analysis. His climate model calculations show that as soon as the summer of 2040, the Arctic will be free of sea ice.
I'm very confident about that we will see that sea ice is going to vanish in the Arctic at least. Yeah.
It's now July. The polar bear's difficult summer began in June, when the sea ice began to melt. As you can see, all summer long, there will be severe melting of the sea ice around the Svalbard Islands. We are now at location 79.5 degrees north. It's moving now. From its body shape, we can tell it's a large male. Summer has only just begun, but this polar bear is already stranded on this island because there's no sea ice. It's prowling this coastline, looking for washed-up animal carcasses. but there's nothing to be had. The bear's lonely expression is heartbreaking. But we didn't expect to find an even more heartbreaking scene on the other side of this island. I think we've just seen something very sad here. In the Svalbard Islands, less than 100 meters away from me, on that island over there, you can see a polar bear. But sadly, it's already dead. With no surrounding sea ice, it has to endure an extremely long period without food. But clearly, this polar bear didn't make it through the summer this year. This is one of the saddest scenes we've observed since we came to the Arctic. The Svalbard Islands have always been known as the home of the polar bear, but what we found is a polar bear carcass.
Really hard to make like an opinion about how the polar bear is, why he's dead. But in the same island, there were few more bears. That means that they are some kind of stuck here because the ice is moving so fast. Usually, these polar bears is now just the beginning of the summer. They should be on top of the sea ice, moving with the sea ice, following the sea ice movements, but they are stuck on the island where is nothing to eat. Some of them will survive, but maybe not all of them. If a polar bear, since the beginning of the summer, gets stuck in an island, the chances to survive are quite low.
The polar bear is a highly adaptable, remarkably intelligent hunter, but it relies on sea ice. Once the sea ice disappears, polar bears will disappear along with it. All polar animals that rely on sea ice for their survival face a grim fate when sea ice disappears, and could even disappear along with it. In the Antarctic, the existence of ice also provides the foundation for life. On the surface, it looks lifeless. But below the surface is where the most critical species in the Antarctic breeds. The Antarctic krill. These tiny crustaceans, Antarctic krill, are in fact the keystone species of the Antarctic food chain. Penguins, seals, and humpback whales all eat Antarctic krill.
Krill life cycle depends on the sea ice. Like the eggs sinks very deep into the ocean, and the larvae start growing, and when the larvae reach the surface, they need to feed on the algae that grows under the ice. So with less amount of sea ice, there is less food available. They cannot become adult krills. With less sea ice, is less food available for krill, and at the same time, in the same scenario, there is a lot of trolley ships that they are fishing krill. We are taking a lot of food from the ecosystem, like we are taking a lot of krill. That is a key species because mostly all the animals that live here feeds on krill, or feeds on something that eats krills. With less krill available, the whole ecosystem will change or maybe not succeed.
The Antarctic Peninsula, this land made of ice and permafrost, is also a home and breeding ground for many penguins. In the past 50 years, the temperature here has risen by 3 degrees Celsius, 10 times the global average. A temperature of 18.3 degrees Celsius was recorded in 2020, almost the same temperature as Taipei that day, a new record. When the Antarctic ice melts and the krill population collapses, the whole ecosystem will collapse with it.
Peninsula is divided in sub-areas. The fishing is going on. The population of penguins, or few populations like Adelie penguins and chinstrap, they are decreasing. At least 30% of the populations of penguins are decreasing in the last 30 years.
Marine organisms, or a few of them, they are sort of very vulnerable against or about climate change. They don't experience, or they experience a similar thing like human beings, something which is called heat stress. If humans get hot, they go to a beach, cool themselves down in the ocean. But if you're already in marine organisms, where you gonna go? I mean, you're already in the ocean, so which is meant to be cool. So the only way for you is, if you can, find colder spots where you can survive. So that means around New Zealand, roughly, if you're a marine organism, you have to shift every year 5 kilometers south to sort of keep pace with climate.
In the end, if we cannot control the degree temperature, so that means they move south, more south and south, and in the end, there is nowhere.
Yeah, they vanish.
Global warming is disrupting all the connections and balance between animals. These moving life stories may end here. Penguins have lived in Antarctica for millions of years. In the past few days, we've watched them brave ice and snowstorms. But they've still managed to survive, filling us with both admiration and pity for these proud little waddlers. But the calamities didn't end there. A few days ago, in late October 2023, scientists isolated the bird flu virus in the dead carcasses of skua and giant storm petrel found on South Georgia. This is the first time avian flu has been found in the Antarctic. Scientists are very concerned because Antarctic animals have never encountered this virus before, and there are many rare and protected species here. Once infected, they are in danger of extinction. At the beginning of 2024, the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research confirmed a large number of elephant seals have died from avian flu. 200 Gentoo penguins have also died after being infected or were close to death. What's worse, this deadly virus has also invaded the Arctic. Scientists have confirmed the first death of a polar bear from avian flu in history. Epidemic alerts were simultaneously raised at both ends of the Earth. We also made another alarming discovery. On this little island where we found the polar bear, we also found human refuse on the ground. There's a fishing line, the remnants of a plastic bag, and microplastics everywhere. There's also a plastic sheet with a barcode. Evidently, the ocean currents have already carried human-generated refuse into the pristine Arctic, the home of the polar bear. We saw much more than garbage. This polar bear is basking lazily in the sun. Nearby, you can see a black bucket. The polar bear is the world's largest living predator on land. I know that everyone would like to see it protected and hopes that it can survive into the future. These uniquely beautiful and pristine polar oceans, and this amazing life cut off from the world, in the end cannot escape the pollution and destruction caused by us humans.
For the next at least 50 years, but it's just going to be less and less each year. And the less sea ice we have, the warmer the whole planet will become.
The Arctic and Antarctic may seem far away, but they have a huge impact on our lives.
"60 meters of sea level is stored in sea ice or in ice in Antarctica. So if this big ice sheet starts melting, it causes sea level rise here. Every 3 years we gain 1 centimeter. It's a global climate system. If we change one bit in the Southern Ocean, it has also, again, implications somewhere else. We have more extreme events, so basically all natural storms become more intense. That means stronger winds, more precipitation, more rain, more floods. It's a climate crisis.
We are going to struggle to keep even below 2 degrees. I almost think that 1.5 is not possible anymore, but we need to do everything we can to stay below the 2 degrees if we want a habitable planet.
You see, this kind of result is by human being,
Yes.
our activity.
Yes.
On a geological timescale, humans have only existed for just a moment. How did we so quickly become a threat to the Earth and all its species? But can we make amends for what we've done and restore this blue planet?
经理操作，对。
这个应该只是我们的一半不到，
哦，那还有另外一半。
已经寄过来了。对对对。
After 36 hours of flying, a team of scientists have assembled from 3 Taiwan universities and the Academia Sinica. This joint Arctic exploration team, made up of 9 university professors and researchers, has arrived on the Svalbard Islands. This is the home of the polar bear, and the place in the Arctic where warming is most severe.
测站就会埋到地底下面，经过卫星传输，传到台大，然后就会接收出来。那现在它在连接是说看那个波形会长成什么样，挺重的。
挺重的耶。台湾的地震仪将放在北极。
对，应该说台湾第一颗吧。
Professor Guo Chenghao's team from National Taiwan University's Department of Geosciences is setting up a broadband seismograph on a huge glacier to monitor movements in the permafrost. Analyzing the data transmitted in real time via satellite, they make a surprising discovery.
像比如说这张图来讲，这个才是2分钟而已，可是你可以明明看说，基本上已经超过30到40个冰阵的一个序列。你看每个 peak 基本上可以想象它就是一个冰阵，对，所以它其实它的那个频率非常非常的高。
The icequake monitoring data coincides with these aerial images of a glacier collapse. Taiwan is a country prone to earthquakes. Professor Guo Chenghao is using his experience in monitoring earthquakes in Taiwan to monitor Arctic ice. This is glacial seismology, a new field developed by the international scientific community.
从冰川它的整个破裂，然后甚至它的下面底流，还有它的整个冰川的流速，那也可以知道整个冰川的一个动态的过程。用地震学来做研究冰川，基本上现在是算非常热门的一个先学。
By listening for icequakes, we learn of any movements or temperature changes in a glacier, which allows us to respond as quickly as possible.
像冰川的破裂，基本上你从卫星的遥测看不到，因为它在地底下。那像南极，他们不是有很大的冰棚冰架，它破裂的时候，我有时候上面是看不到的，它可能在下面破，所以我用地震仪监测就说，它在那边开始破了，可以开始做一个有点像防灾的预警的一个作业。
哦，水很冰哦。
If you really want to get a glimpse of the mysteries beneath the glacier, you'll have to depend on this device.
那它现在边航行就边在收集水下的一个地形的资料。这一艘，是为了北极，所以可以叫它叫北极1号也没问题。
Arctic 1, flying the Republic of China flag, makes a successful voyage in the Arctic Ocean. Professor Liu Zhenghao's research group built this remote-controlled survey boat at National Penghu University of Science and Technology.
设计、研发、制造都在台湾，
而且都是你们自己，
都是我们自己的。然后我们也
Everything from research to building, it's all made in Taiwan.
我们透过这个声呐，它可以知道水下的一个地形的状况。好，那我们现在无人船已经正式解锁，好，那我们准备让它来做。它是可以到水深150米是没有问题的。一个是水底下的地形，好，那第二个是也想知道说到底水底下的沉积物的分布，建制整个水底的一个3D 的一个水下的模型，好，那透过不同时期的比对，我们就可以知道水下的一个变化，因为冰河后退的关系。然后现在在这个
The research team has previously surveyed the coasts of Dapeng Bay and the Penghu Islands in Taiwan, even finding a sunken shipwreck. This time they have specially built Arctic 1 to survey the underwater topography of the glacier and fjord. They want to understand the topographical and hydrological changes that occur when a glacier retreats.
受到全球暖化的一个状况下，我们的极端的气候事件，比如台风会越来越大，那这个台风对我们的海岸线、对我们的沙滩的影响其实是很剧烈的。那到底这些沙子在水底下，它到底怎么样来移动？有没有机会再回到岸上，还是往更深处的地方移动？因为这牵涉到我们整个国土流失的一个问题，海岸线后退的问题。好，我们的环境在面对气候变迁下，到底它会怎么样的变化？那这些变化的结果，当然就可以提供我们未来怎么去因应气候变迁来做一个调试，来做一个政策的拟定。
老师，你的研究成果应该是贡献给整个地球人类，
是还可以这样说。
那这仪器可以非常稳定的测量，非常精确的测量二氧化碳的浓度在
Professor Ling Lihong of NTU is applying his many years of experience researching the carbon cycle in Taiwan's wind-eroded terrain to the polar regions. By extracting and analyzing DNA from filtered Arctic meltwater he has collected, he has identified over 10,000 microorganisms. This confirms that thawing microorganisms from retreating glaciers release more carbon dioxide.
因为冰川覆盖的时候温度比较低，所以微生物的作用就会比较缓慢。那一旦逐步的暖化的结果之后，然后冰川的覆盖也撤除了，那等于是本来上面有一个硬壳盖在上面，压着二氧化碳出不来，那现在就等于把这个硬壳拿掉了，让它有排放的空间或排放的管道变得更为顺畅。从目前的气候模型预测起来，也许本世纪结束之前，可能可以想象会有个3度到5度的这样子温度的平均温度的上升，而且应该全球性的人的作为应该是有一些共同的目标，才有机会去减缓这个暖化可能造成的一些效益。
Taiwan scientists have traveled to the Arctic to sound the alarm. Their valuable research will help resolve humanity's difficulties. But can polar animals afford to wait any longer? We previously observed a polar bear detouring around a group of walruses. It later pursued some reindeer, running at speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Although the polar bear was unsuccessful, a polar bear hunting reindeer is a behavior that is new to scientific research.
The ecosystem is changing. These animals are very smart and they are trying to find different sources of food. During the summer, polar bears trying to catch a reindeer, but they never succeed. And it looks like they are hunting reindeers during the winter time. A kind of sinking in the snow, they cannot run so fast, and polar bears have more chances to catch them. These huge animals, these carnivores that are so powerful, they are so amazing. Why we are going to wait until we have proofs to do something? Maybe we'll be open to change our behaviors to make this a better place.
Life will find a way. Even though the future looks bleak, there is still a glimmer of hope, as long as we act to save it in time.
我们在很快的时间内破坏了地球，但我们人类有这么高的智慧，可以在很快的时间之内又逆转回到原来最接近原来的状态。那这就是我们人存在的这个独特性。
This is a time of ignorance, but also one of wisdom. At this moment in time, humanity is at a crossroads, as we are the only species in 4.6 billion years able to change the Earth. But we are also able to restore the Earth and become its guardians. We have already circled the Earth 1.5 times in our journey from the Antarctic to the Arctic. For most of us, the polar regions are very distant, but we've already profoundly changed these frozen worlds, affecting not just the Arctic and Antarctic and all its living creatures, but the entire planet and ourselves. Scientists all over the world, including Taiwan, are doing their utmost to research and protect the Earth, because they are profoundly aware that the human survival is closely bound to the polar environment. There's no one quick fix to resolve the crisis confronting us, unless we all work together. We will only survive if balance is restored to nature, because wildlife and humanity will share the same fate.